Om Shanti, gentlemen.
Om Shanti Arunam.
Welcome to everyone. Sister Jayanti, we thought to just show a picture of the 9 goddesses. And here they are. And these are actually, they say, the different forms of Durga. I'll just read a few. Shaila Putri, Brahmacharini, Chandra Ghanta, Kushmanda. They're probably not terms that we are familiar with, like Saraswati, etc., Kali, but these are all of those. And then on the 10th day, so these are worshipped for 9 nights now. It's happening every night in Bhakti. And then on the 10th day, they burn Ravan, which is the Shera. So maybe Sister Jayanti can also shed some more light on that. Thank you, gentlemen. And yes, we will be churning today Baba's new Murli of the season, the first Murli, which is according to the time, make the qualifications equal to the aim by becoming equal to the Father. Thank you.
Om Shanti to everyone. And yes, it was very lovely seeing Bapdada's Murli. And I know that I wasn't there December the 15th, 2002, but perhaps some of you may have been present there in front of Baba. So that would have especially evoked that feeling of Baba's presence. And it's very fascinating to see how Baba threads the Murli and how he takes us through a journey. And so Baba, again, starting with us with that reminder of our own stage of self-respect and how elevated that is and how many titles God himself has given us. And Baba speaking about it very beautifully. Take up each one of the titles that God has given you, and it's like the bead of rosary, and all the beads are together. And so take up one, reflect on that, feel it, experience it, and experience the joy and the intoxication of that, and then go on to the next and the next and the next. And you can see how meditation can be very, very powerful and enjoyable. And this is why Baba was talking about how you need to have the faith, but also you need to have the spiritual intoxication that this is able to give you. And let your dignity and your inner self-esteem be so strong that nothing can shake you, because these are the qualities that God has asked you to experience and God sees in you. And so Baba raising our self-esteem to that very, very high level so that nothing can shake us. And then Baba saying how in the morning at Amrit Vela, Baba went on a tour across the world to see how many children are experiencing that stage of self-respect and how many actually remember all the different aspects or some of the different aspects. So it's like many rosaries, not just one rosary, but many rosaries of all the different titles that Baba has blessed us with. And very interesting that Baba differentiated between faith and spiritual intoxication. And so faith makes you knowledgeful, but it's spiritual intoxication that makes you powerful. And so it reminded me of why it is Baba loves the mothers so much, and how the mothers always have this bhavna. And as a result of this inner bhavna, they might not have so much detail of knowledge filled in their minds, but they have unshakable faith. But more than the faith, they have this very, very pure love for God. And so that bhavna makes them extremely powerful and able to overcome all the adversities that come in their lives, all the obstacles that they have to face, and they keep smiling and moving ahead. So very beautiful differentiation. And then Baba even was differentiating in the English language. And so Baba on the one hand saying that even knowledge has two different aspects. One is simply to be knowledgeful. Yes, I remember all the gyan, I haven't forgotten any of that. But the second is to be knowledgeable. And Baba's interpretation of knowledgeable, where knowledge is soaked into the soul, Baba described it as being the embodiment of knowledge. And so whatever it is I do, it's in that higher state of awareness that with knowledge, I think, I speak, I do things. And then Baba spoke about how very important it is to have this experience of self-respect and intoxication, and how this actually makes you even more elevated than the Father. It's like putting a crown on your head, and the crown is the highest of all. And so Baba reminding us that this is how God sees us, but yet there's a difference. Because yes, with this knowledge and this experience of spiritual intoxication, we have a very, very elevated aim. And then Baba said, but what? Are the teachers going to tell me, or are the double foreigners going to tell me? And then, of course, Baba said, you all know your most elevated aim is to become like the Father. And when you become like the Father, then yes, you have reached your destination. And so, but you have the aim, but you don't yet have the qualifications. And so check and see how much difference there still is, and to what extent you're able to eliminate that difference. And if somebody is thinking, oh, that's hard work, Baba's already caught our thought, and Baba's saying that there's one thing that Baba does not wish to see his children do, and that is work hard, labor hard, make hard effort, or find things difficult. No, because when it's something done with love, you don't feel any labor behind it. You do it easily and naturally. And of course, Baba then gave the example of how easy and natural it is to be body conscious, because we've been doing that for 63 births, a long, 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 long time, thousands of years. And so it's become totally natural. It's become our nature, to the extent that when we do something which is not quite right, then we say it becomes a very good excuse, but what can I do? It's my nature. But no, I am now different. I have taken a spiritual rebirth. And so now in this new birth of mine as a child of God, I have the highest aim, and that highest aim is going to make me equal to the Father. But the main qualification of that is to be soul conscious. And Baba commented that, yes, you have to deal with all types of body consciousness connected with your own body and the attachment to this, but also the bodies of others and the attachment to them. But all of that is quite external, it's quite gross and visible. but there are more subtle forms of body consciousness and awareness of the body that Baba wants us to deal with. So this morning, I was asked, well, what are some of those points? Even though Baba said, now discuss it all together. And we had a rich discussion about it. And the discussion was that there are two things that Baba's constantly mentioned about this thing of subtle ego and body consciousness. One is where I say, I am right. I know I'm right because my yoga is good. I know I'm right. Or my understanding of gyan is good. I am right. I've been in gyan 30 years, 40 years, plus. I am right. I have the experience. My Lokik profession has taught me X, Y, Z. So this consciousness of I am right is highly subtle, and it can be quite gyani. There can be all sorts of support systems that I create around that idea, but it is my ego speaking, my body consciousness. And then connected very much with that, there's another aspect that Baba often comments on, that subtle desire for appreciation, for approval, for acknowledgement, for a stage, for a platform, all of these subtle things that are very, very connected with my own state of body consciousness and actually my own state of lack of self-esteem. This is why I want that respect to come from outside in so many different ways. I haven't developed that. I haven't created that inner stage of self-respect that Baba wants me to have. And so these two bugs come in the way. But as I say, that's only the starter. And Baba asked us to have a discussion about it. And I think it would be a very, very deep, profound experience if those at any center want to create a group and have that discussion. I think it would be very worthwhile. And then Baba's saying, but Baba wants soul consciousness to be very, very natural. Why? Because it is soul consciousness that's going to make you Avyakt, that's going to make you karmatit. And Baba had heard that there was a discussion that the dadis had together about what it is to become karmatit, how to become the angel. And that he was very pleased that they'd had this spiritual give and take of exchange of experiences and ideas about this. And Baba said, Dadiji constantly is thinking now about karmatit and Avyakt. And of course, if you look back at that time, you don't know, but you look back, and it was just 5 years before she became karmatit. But also further, the last 3 years were not a huge amount of activity. And so that he had a lot of time for silence, and that he already gone into a space of silence, even within a year of this Murli. And she would be very aware, not that she wasn't aware, she was aware, sometimes had the fortune of sitting at the table with her, and that he would be silent. And we thought that she wasn't really interested in our conversation about practicalities and things, but she was, at least whenever it needed her input, she would be on the ball and she would say, but what about this? What about this? But she hadn't participated in the discussion around that topic. Where it was essential and necessary, she gave her input. But she was a lot in silence. Many of you were in Madhban in those days, in and out, and you would remember that. And of course, then the last 3 years, really just absolutely confined. And no travel, no nothing. I think maybe her last foreign travel was to London for the inauguration of Global Diamond House. Diamond House 2000, and it was either 3 or 4. And at that time, she was very much part of our family and very alive. And exchanging a lot of lovely things with us and active, very active. So Baba was picking up a signal from Daddy that Daddy is very quickly moving to that stage. And so Baba was saying that the one main quality you need in order to experience your Avyakt stage, your angelic stage, or your Karmatit stage is humility. Without humility, you can't even experience your incorporeal soul stage. And Baba reminded us of the early mantra from 1969, Sakar Baba's last Murli, in which Baba's words were, be incorporeal, be egoless, and be viceless. And Baba put it very, very beautifully, that you don't have to remember the whole Murli. Just remember these 3 words. And if it's these 3 words that are guiding you, then yes, it'll be fine. Because in your thoughts, let there be elevated, pure stage of awareness. In your words, let there be humility. In your actions, let there be the consciousness of being a server. And in your relationships and connections with others, let there be nothing but pure good wishes and high hopes and the purest of all desires, the best wishes for all. So the pure thoughts, the Shubha Bhavna, the pure feelings, and also then the good wishes for each and every one. But this will happen only if you remember that mantra of incorporeal, egoless, and viceless. And so this will transform everything for you. And so Baba making it very, very simple. On the one hand, very simple, but of course, with love, there's no labor. And so Baba was showing us a very fast track method to get to the Avyakt stage, the incorporeal stage, the Karmatit stage. And so very beautiful. And then Baba was also speaking to the double foreigners. And in that, Baba talking about, before that, Baba spoke about the force. Baba said, you hold many, many courses nowadays at all the different centers. And there's one course that you don't do, which is essential. And that is the course of filling force. And Baba had spoken about that early on when Baba had become Avyakt. Give yourself the 7 days course, but also fill yourself with the force of that course. And so now Baba was saying that fill the students who come to you, not just with gyan, not just with words, but with the force, the spirituality, the shakti, the power that they need. And they all say these things are very nice to hear. It's good, and then they trot off. But if they feel the force even slightly, then they're going to be able to say, yes, this is what I need. And of course, Baba's talking about spiritual power and that passion of God's love. And of course, whatever are the challenges that people are facing in the world today, yes, it's not the theory, it's God's love and the spiritual power that will enable them to manage themselves and be a support for their families through all these things that have started and are going to increase more and more, all the upheaval. It's that spiritual force that's going to carry them through that also. And then Baba pointed out why he loves the double foreigners so much. He loves everyone. And he made sure that he was reminding the Bharatvasis that I've often told you of your specialities. But today it's the turn of the double foreigners. There were people from 30 countries represented there. So it must have been students, Lokik teachers. It was Christmas. So young children, it would have been all of them, all that age range. And of course, the children's parents were with them. So that was a season that all of these activities would start, all these different retreats. And so I was saying that one of the things that makes Baba love you a lot, Baba loves all, but he loves you very much, because you are the ones for whom it's been said charity begins at home. As soon as you heard God's knowledge, you became God's messengers and shared that knowledge with so many others who are connected with you, so that you were able to begin with charity in your own country, in your own home. And of course, this is how Baba's message has spread into so many countries across the globe, because people had that intoxication and love and wanted to share the things that they had experienced. And the second thing that Baba commented on was also very, very lovely. And in that, Baba said, Baba sees that all of you have a lot of love for Brahma Baba. All of you have become Brahma Kumaris, the children of Brahma. And when you speak about Baba, Brahma Baba, you speak with your heart, with your experience. It's not just what you've heard. It's not just words that you're saying, but it comes from your heart that this is my Baba. And so Baba loves you a lot for that also. Very lovely speciality that Baba mentioned. And of course, a thought crossed my mind, what about Bharat? And yes, the earlier souls who had come, they instantly recognized Baba and had that loving relationship and still continue to have it. But people in Bharat who came a bit later, maybe they would be more in the category of knowledge rather than bhavana. The mothers, of course, with that bhavana. But Baba's double foreigner children, the majority of them would say that they've had visions of Baba. Baba's come in their dreams, or as soon as they heard Baba's knowledge, they went to Madhuban, and Baba's hut or Baba's room evoked memories of their past experiences with Baba in some form. So very deep connection with Brahma Baba. And then it's the turn of UP, Uttar Pradesh, the northern province in India. And Baba's saying that all of you have become the servers who have come to create your fortune through this huge act of charity. Remember, it's the time of 25,000 people coming for a stretch of time, and the team that would be responsible for the service in the kitchen, managing all of that, managing the hall, holding classes that be, the Bharatvasis have developed it to a fine art, and they know exactly how to do it and how to manage multi-thousands. So they bring with themselves a whole big team of, I would say it's on average, 1,000 people serving 10,000 people. It's a sort of rough thing. And so when they have like 25,000 people, then they have like 10,000 sevadharis who come for all the different departments. Most of you have been to Madhuban and you know how it's like a huge military operation that happens. But Baba's point was, you come and you do so much service day and night with such love, and it's your fortune, because this service that you're doing is your charity that's going to carry you into the golden age, and 21 births reward is fixed through this. And why Baba loves the servers is because God is the world server. And when Brahma Baba would sign letters, he would say, your obedient servant. And so this idea of a server, a servant, again, that idea of humility. And so to be a sevadhari, to be one who has come to Madhuban to serve, is great fortune. Baba called the teachers by a very lovely name, Guru Bhai. And the Guru would always have one person out of all his disciples who he really would mentor and train to take on the legacy after the Guru had departed. So it would be a person much younger. And the Guru would sometimes ask him to sit on the gadi beside him and also then share something. So the Guru Bhai, the one who is sitting on the seat of the Guru. And so the teachers have been given this amazing fortune of having this amazing experience of reading Baba's Murli in class and being with the Guru, the brother of the Guru. And then when Baba was saying goodbye to everybody, Baba's remembering all the various things that Baba has mentioned in the Murli. The summary is always there in Baba's last farewell, Baba's goodbye. And in this particular case, Baba has sent love and remembrances to every person, whether they're sitting in Bharat or sitting abroad. Baba's acknowledged the people on the webcast. Baba's saying every child, Baba is seeing them in their stage of self-respect and giving them love and remembrance accordingly. Whether they're alone somewhere, whether they're at a center, whether they're in a village, whether they're in a town, they're in a city, wherever it is they are, Baba mentioned it all categorically, to be able to share that love and God's remembrance for everyone. And so a lovely, lovely Murli yet again. And of course, yesterday we had 2 Murlis. The morning Murli was again one of special memories for me, because we heard the 31st in March in which Baba was saying goodbye. And then now again in this particular Murli, Baba's come specially. I remember the scene of Dadiji calling those of us who were instruments for global cooperation across the world. We suddenly got a message from Dadiji, come to India. And this was August and it was monsoons in India. And so a number of us instantly flew to India at Dadi's call, and there we were with the other instruments from Bharat. And so I was talking about the meeting of love and how everybody's come together with that one thought, that one idea to reveal Baba. And it's this unity that's going to actually reveal God to the world. So it was a Murli that brought back many, many sweet memories. And it was interesting that the passage that Baba was speaking with the Dadis, that actually belonged to the 31st March Murli, but it was connected with this because that Murli had been fairly long anyway. And so then they gave us that whole passage of Baba speaking to the Dadis. And what struck me beautifully about that was how Baba said that all of you Dadis and your unity is the fortress that keeps the Yagya, and not just Madhuban, but the whole Yagya of the world safe. And there's only a few of you, 10, 12, however many. But what you have to do, you're the first crop. Baba uses that term, first crop. Then there's the second crop and the third crop. The second crop, those who came to Baba in the 50s and so on. And then the third crop, those who came to Baba in the 60s. And then after that, many other crops, but the ones who had sustenance from Sakar Baba. And he said that you're the first crop and everybody looks towards you. You're the example. And all of you have created this amazing unity together. But it's also important that you show others, the second crop and the third crop, how to do the same, so that it's not just a little bracelet, but it becomes a big garland, but all with that unity of thought and idea, so that everybody together is going to be able to reveal themselves, that they are the Shaktis, and reveal the Father. And again, the reminder that Baba was actually giving a lot of help to keep the body going through that whole period of 6 months, but also it was the accumulation of good karma and the accumulation of the powers that the soul had that was also helping the body continue. So again, a lovely connection with Dadi Gulzar's health and the situation, but also the memories of global cooperation and how successful it was. Baba reminding us that Baba had said to us, create groups of professionals. And of course, India took that to heart. And now there are, I think, 20 different, they call them wings of all the different professions. But profession is loose term because it's also like the rural wing, like the social workers wing, all the different careers that people have. And so the lifestyles that people have, all of that is within the wings. And Baba was predicting it, that this is the service that's really going to begin. And of course, it took off. Jagdish Bhai was the first one who picked up on it and ran with it. But of course, then it's carried on. And just a couple of sentences about Navratri. So the Shaktis, the goddesses, remembered 18 nights. The 9 nights now around this, well, 9 nights before the Sera Diwali, but also in March, around March time, before the birth of Rama is celebrated, Ram Nomi. And so thousands and thousands of Shaktis, not just Mama, but so many others. And so all are being honored at this time. And it's a time for fasting, for feasting, for dancing, and staying up through the night. I don't know how much they remember God when they're dancing through the night. It's also meant to be a time of God's remembrance. But the names of the Shaktis are either connected with their task, and some of those names you were seeing were task connected, or they're connected with their qualities, or they're connected in some way with Shiva or Brahma Baba. So that's again a whole fascinating talk, but just that memorial that's so precious in India. And of course, wherever there are Indian communities abroad, they have taken that custom and they also honor and celebrate that, both through tapasya, but also, of course, through dance. And so that also happens across the world, everywhere. And the other day, Baba mentioned that the sisters are also the Pandavas and the brothers are also the Shaktis. That, of course, I mean, just looking at the screen very quickly, you can see that we have a few lucky, powerful Pandavas who are with us, and mostly it's the sisters. And so, but Baba's saying that the Pandavas are also the Shaktis, but in particular, the memorial of the goddesses at this time. But everyone can take Shakti, power from God. So let me stop here.
Thank you, Jayanti. So maybe you'll do a demo for us of Ras and Garba at the end.
I'll hand that over to you. You're the expert. In Gujarati families, even a child of 3 learns how to do Garba.
Yes, thank you, Jayanti. That was lovely. Just a few things more from the Murli. So maybe, Jayanti, in one line, or at least just a few words. Oh, sorry, before that, yes, there has been a request for you to speak a little slowly because we have translation into 13 languages, so they cannot keep up. Just in a line or a few words, how would you define staying in your self-respect?
When I remember I'm a child of God, that's the starting point. Then in that stage of soul consciousness, I'm seated on my throne of self-respect. And then as a child of God, I've been blessed with all the inheritance that God wants to give me, all the knowledge. So Baba's saying you're the master, knowledgeful one, etc., etc., etc. So when I remember who I truly am, then whatever somebody else is saying to me, it doesn't hurt me, because taking sorrow means I'm going to give sorrow also at some point. But whatever somebody is saying to me, if I'm stable on my seat of self-respect, it doesn't touch the soul. I'm thinking about not things that I need to reflect on and ponder, but sometimes people are in a mood or their nature, whatever, and they say things that can be quite hurtful. But yes, examine it to see if there's a way that it can be resolved to the satisfaction of the other. But if not, then at least I shouldn't take sorrow from that. And so just the starting point being the child of God.
Okay, and then, gentlemen, regarding the course of force, well, I'll tell you something happened today. So somebody was organizing a teacher for a course. And she said to me, she said, I will tell that sister, because she can only come once a week. So I will tell her to do 2 lessons in one day. And I said, no, it doesn't work like that. You can't, like, it's not a question of just force feeding that soul with knowledge. They have to understand the soul. They have to understand God. So when Baba says the course of force, can you just go into that a bit in depth?
Baba used the word Shakti, the power, the spiritual power. And so when I'm explaining to somebody, say about the soul, if I'm in that stage of soul consciousness and I give them drishti, they can feel that detachment from the body. And they can, even if it's not something they can articulate in the same way, but they can feel a very specific vibration. Or I'm talking about Shiv Baba. Again, my love for Baba, my experience of Baba, my remembrance of Baba will allow me to share it in such a way that it touches their heart and it rings true in their heart. They can feel a resonance with it. And so it doesn't mean speaking in a loud voice. It doesn't mean force feeding. It doesn't mean insisting I am right, I know what is right, but more it's the vibrations that you're emitting, not just at that moment, but generally also. Because, you know, sometimes when you're on a platform or even teaching one-to-one, it's still a platform in a sense. There can be a very beautiful sweetness, but afterwards behavior is something else. So this is why Baba linked it with that whole subject of what is your aim? Your aim is to be like the Father. So what are your qualifications and how are you going to achieve them? The incorporeal stage, the egoless stage, the viceless stage. So the more I'm practicing all of these things on an inner level and going through that process of purification myself, to that extent, I'm filling myself with spiritual power. So it's not just applicable to 1 hour or 45 minutes, but it's the way I am, the way I've changed my natural nature and made it spiritual, so that I am in that awareness of the incorporeal soul, the stage of being egoless, humble, and the stage in which my actions are actually ones of service to others. So it's not just words that are humble, but it's actions also that give that feeling. And then, of course, if you think about what Baba's saying in terms of relationships and connections, Shubha Bhavna, those pure feelings of good wishes, and Kamna, my purest good wishes are with you. I want nothing but the best for you. So all of these are not that come out at that moment as I speak in terms of my words, but it's everything that soul is filled with that I've been practicing through the last many hours.
Yes, that's nice. Nice clarity. Thank you, gentlemen. And I just want to take up one other thing. As you said at the end in the blessing, Baba said that everyone has the right to love and remembrance, because as soon as you say Baba, you have a right to love and remembrance. And actually, it's not just love and remembrance, but many times, gentlemen, this question gets asked that Baba has said that whoever gets even a drop of knowledge will get the inheritance. So I know inheritance is also liberation, but he often says they'll come to heaven, they'll experience, golden age. So how can, if all of them are going to get the message and they all come to heaven, then hell becomes heaven, right? I mean, the population becomes the same. So anyway, this is a question that often gets asked, if you can just clarify it.
There's a difference that Baba has often clarified, that the entry to the golden age is for those who've said Baba from their heart. And so when whoever's hearing the Murli and receiving love and remembrances from Baba's heart, of course, they've recognized Baba to that extent that they're hearing the Murli. And so they have said, Baba is my Baba. Baba is the one who's the supreme, that being of light. And so if there's that much recognition, then yes, surely they claim their inheritance, and they claim now at this moment God's love and remembrances also. And that's very different to just hearing a message and thinking, yeah, it sounds good, maybe there's some reality there, or where by the end, everybody is going to have at least a glimpse of God as light, a vision, or that experience. And so it's a momentary recognition just in the final moments. And yes, they'll all get liberation. And so there's a difference between saying Baba from my heart and the vision at the last moment, when everybody will surely know that there is a God, and that God is the parent of all, and that God is liberating them from a world of sorrow. At the moment, people are still trying to put this old world right. They think, do this, do that, do the other, and everything will work out. And what we know is that you have to put the soul right, and then everything will work out. But even though some souls will make that effort, we know that the vast majority won't. And so, yes, Satyuga is not going to be filled with agnostics and atheists and so on and so on. It is going to be a world in which they don't know God, but there's a sense of the sacred. They treat nature as sacred. They treat life as sacred. And so there's that sanctity that's there. And that's coming because they've also recognized God to whatever extent they have. They've said Baba with their hearts. And so for me, there's a big difference between just getting a message and the message being ignored for most of the time, but at the end, then a vision. And those souls who, to whatever extent, they've been making spiritual effort, and they say Baba with their heart.
Okay, gentlemen. And actually, it's a question in the box. I know you mentioned it, but just for sake of elaboration, the real difference between knowledgeful and knowledgeable. And as Baba said in Hindi, like, you become the practical image of it. So do you want to say anything more on that? I just want to say actually that now on the YouTube, you can go to each question, like there's a timestamp, and you can go to, just click on that timestamp and it gives you that answer at that particular time in the video. So access here.
So for me, knowledgeful means I have all the theory, I understand everything. And then the embodiment of knowledge, gyan swarup, knowledge swarup, to be the practical form of that. Does my life, does my behavior demonstrate that I have that knowledge, that wisdom? When I perform karma, is it with that total awareness of past, present, and future? What is going to be the outcome of these words that I'm using? What is going to be the outcome of this karma that I'm thinking of performing? And so knowledgeable is always going to remain safe without making mistakes. Knowledgeful can make mistakes. They have the theory, but they forget that at the moment of applying it in life.
So could you say it's like knowledge turning to wisdom, right? As they say in the West.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we move to the questions now. So here's a question. The question is, gentlemen, do you think it's appropriate that since we have a big yagya and sometimes there's food left over, is it okay to feed it to the birds, the dogs, the animals? Do you think it's appropriate to feed yagya food to the animals?
Everywhere it depends on the situation. And so in Madhuban, definitely, if there's food left over and it's very hot climate, then yes, it's fed to the beggars outside or to the animals, so that at least it's being used in a worthwhile way in some form or another. In some countries, I know that they have absolutely a system that there are food banks, there are care homes, there are orphanages, and they have contacts where, say, for example, it's a big feast or a festival or whatever, and they're cooking a lot and they don't know how many people are going to come. It often happens like that. Then they have a system whereby whatever is remaining gets sent to these places so that then it's used for human beings. But if it's not possible to feed human beings, we couldn't do that in England. There's too many restrictions and all sorts of bureaucracy that you have to follow before you can send food in that way. And generally speaking, you can't send cooked food to places anyway. So yes, if there's food remaining, sometimes we give it to the students to go home and distribute it to their neighbors because it's home cooked food and their neighbors would appreciate it. So definitely never to throw away food. That wastage of food is a huge karmic debt. People don't understand that always. But if I've purchased more food than I know I can use, and I'm going to bin it. And at one point they were saying that there are countries where a lot of food gets wasted and is thrown overnight. But let me use food, yes, for the purpose it was meant, for the family. And if this family hasn't been able to use it for whatever reason, then yes, send it to where it can be used, and then further to the animals, sure.
And here, gentlemen, because it's so hot, we actually have fridges. The Arab people, some of them have bought and of course locked, and anybody wants can put water and food, leftover food, and people actually go pick it up from there. Okay, here's another question. Is there a connection between the time we come to knowledge and our karmic accounts?
You know, Baba sometimes says those who left Paramdham first, came first into the golden age, come first into Gyan. But I'll just give practical figures in a sense. Out of the 350 people who arrived in Mount Abu from Karachi at that time, they were all those who had come together right at the very start. But not all 350 of them became the 8 jewels or the 108 beads of the rosary. It was number-wise effort makers. And so I don't think it's past karma that's dictating when I come to Baba. In a way, everything is karma, but it's not that it's necessarily negative karma that I come to Baba later on. Because coming to Baba later on, sometimes Baba would tease somebody and say, because some people would say to Baba, I wish I'd been there in the days of Karachi. And Baba would say, well, maybe you would have run away. And why Baba said that is because life in the ashram was pretty disciplined at that point, very, very disciplined. And maybe you wouldn't have survived it. And so it's good you've come later. But that's the thing, that even today, somebody who's been in gyan just for a short time, if they make that honest effort and sincere effort, they can still take their claim on a bead in the 108 rosary. That's not yet fixed. I think the 8 is fixed now, but the 108 isn't fixed.
And do you want to just answer this with that? Somebody's asking, how do we know which crop we are?
You don't have to think about it too much. Take every Murli that you hear, the Sakar Murli, the Avyakt Murli, for yourself, and practice what Baba's asking us to do in that Murli. And you can be at the top of the tree.
Yes, true. Thank you. Genuine, can we take up the subject of fear, please? There's all kinds of fears and phobias. And how to remove the fears? Like, is there any, does meditation really help? Does one have to go through it? So if one's scared of water, one has to get into the water. Like, how is your understanding of fear and how to remove fear?
I'll deal with how to remove it spiritually, because there's a lot of psychological stuff in the subject of fear. And I'm sure if you're really interested, you could just look it up and you'd get a huge amount of information, more than I could give you. But how to deal with fear? The more I trust Bap Dada, the more I trust Baba's knowledge, and the more I trust myself, the more stable I can be. My security on an inner level begins to grow, whether it's my self-esteem or whether it's through my faith in Baba. And that gives me the power and the courage to deal with whatever it is that's coming my way. I'll speak about one thing. I was so scared of talking in public. To me, 2 people, I could chat with them. 3 people, and I wouldn't say a word. I'd be totally silent. And that was until October 1968, when Daddy told me the mantra, Ji Haan, always say yes. And going to Agra and Baba sending a letter. Daughter Jayanti has to give this lecture in Kanpur in a couple of weeks' time. And I couldn't say no, I had to say yes. And then just the preparation. I've talked about this before, so I won't go into detail. But more than that, the last question that I had was, what if I look at the gathering and I get scared? And I was reminded, be soul conscious, see everyone else as a soul, and you'll be fine. And that's what I did. And a whole new chapter began for me. And just center yourself, just come back to soul consciousness, my faith in myself and my faith in Baba. And something I've been quoting a lot in recent times because the subject of fear keeps coming up. And of course, it's a quote from Dadi Janki. And what she said was, when a bird sits on a branch, the bird sits very comfortably, unafraid. The bird isn't afraid. She doesn't know whether the branch is going to break or not. She doesn't know if it's strong or not. But she's confident because she knows she has wings with which to fly. And so the bird trusts her wings. It's not the trust in the branch, but it's the trust in her wings. She knows that she can fly even if the branch were to break. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but my faith in myself through that awareness of being a child of God, my faith in God, and also my faith in Baba's knowledge, Baba's teachings, that can remove all types of fears, really.
Nice. Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. So somebody's asking about your comment on I am right. So they're saying that in some cases, yeah, for example, if a doctor is speaking, then he's right because he's educated in that subject. So he is coming from that place of, I know what I'm talking about. So how do you have a check on this?
Why do we seek a second opinion? Why do we do that? It's quite normal practice when there's something serious that happens. Many people will say to you, did you seek a second opinion? There can always be different interpretations, no matter how educated and wise somebody is. There can be many different perspectives on anything. So I won't go into the detail of that. You've all had that experience. But in this case in particular, I wasn't even talking really about the wisdom of somebody with a professional background. I was talking more about where Baba has talked about the ego of I am right. My yoga is good, so I know I'm right, and so on and so on.
Yeah, okay, gentlemen. And maybe this can be the last question. Since Sister Jayanti gives so many talks, can you give us any tips on how you prepare for your talks? Because this person seems to spend a lot of time preparing for their talk.
The training I was given was within that 2-week span leading up to the Kanpur lecture, but it's always helped me, and I don't need to prepare in the same way at this point. But at that time, and certainly for the next year, I continue to do this. Write whatever you know about that subject, whatever comes to mind, read it, correct it a couple of times if necessary, and then remember it. Remember the main points, and you'll find that you're creating a thread that can help you remember the main points. And then remember Baba, and off you go.
Yeah, gentlemen, I just end with, I remember many years ago when I was working with you in the office, and because I was just always in the office and I never gave lectures. So Brother Nick asked me to talk at the intensive, and the talk was meant to be 30 minutes. And after like 10, 12 minutes, I finished and I said, any questions? And then I remember coming up to you in the office and you asked me how it went. And I said, well, it was very short. And you said to me, well, you have to prepare. And so I've never forgotten that. And so Sister Jayanti is suggesting, to churn, to prepare, to think about the subject. Thank you so much, Jayanti Ben, and thank you, everyone.
Writing it down is important, because sometimes we think I've churned it and it's all there, but it's not. Write it, and then you'll actually see how much is there or not.
Yes, I agree. I do the mind maps, gentlemen. So yeah, I agree. Thank you. Okay, so we will end here, and we're going to play a nice song, which is actually a Navratri song by Sister Damini. It's a new Baba song for Navratri. Thank you.
Om Shanti.
शक्तियाँ घूमे शिव शक्ति